Fisher was sent to jail with no bail. After the arraignment, there was some shouting and fighting outside the courtroom.
I want everybody to know what Mr. Fisher did on that night.
District Attorney Mary Pat Donnelly says Fisher is assumed to be a romantic partner of the child's mother.
By using cleaning products that were so strong they literally removed the pigment from her skin. You are a threat to society. You show no remorse for what you did to Josie.
Did you expect this to come?
On July 9, 2024, the devastating case of Josefina Cunningham took a critical turn. 34-year-old Robert Fisher, the man charged with her unspeakable fatality, pleaded guilty in a courtroom packed with distraught family, friends, and supporters of justice. As Rensselaer County District Attorney Mary Pat Donnelly shared in chilling detail, Fisher's crimes against the innocent 3-year-old were as violent as they were unthinkable. Josefina, affectionately known as Josie, was remembered as a joyful, imaginative child with big dreams of becoming a firefighter. At her daycare, Josie would often play pretend teacher, lining up baby dolls, reading to them, and caring for them with a tenderness beyond her young age. Described as a girly girl with an unmistakable smile that could brighten any room, Josie's bright spirit touched everyone she met, making the circumstances of her passing even harder to comprehend. On the night of July 6, 2023, the child's mother left her in the care of Robert Fisher, a recent acquaintance who she seemingly trusted. Hours later, the unthinkable happened. The next morning, just after dawn, police responded to an urgent call at 1552 Broadway. Josephine was found unresponsive, her small body showing signs of traumatic injuries, and her skin was scrubbed raw with bleach, a detail that would haunt investigators. She was immediately transported to Albany Medical Center, where doctors confirmed that sadly she had passed away. Her aunt called her brother Jy'Quan Stewart to share the news, and he received the devastating call on his way to work, feeling a wave of shock and disbelief. As details unfolded, it became evident that this was more than a case of neglect or accidental harm. Fisher had subjected Josephine to horrific abuse, assaulting her in ways no child should ever endure. It was discovered he had drugged her with her mother's prescription medication before committing the brutal acts that ultimately led to her passing. The tragedy was magnified by the man's attempts to clean up with bleach, leaving painful marks that added to the list of evidence against him. Detectives quickly honed in on Fisher, whose behavior raised immediate red flags. At the scene, he tried to block officers from entering the room, attempting to hinder the investigation. This obstruction only raised suspicions, and forensic evidence within the room painted a harrowing picture. Blood was discovered on the bed, suggesting a violent assault. Investigators soon confirmed that after, absolutely, sorry to break the narration, guys, but with this case, I've left out a lot of the details in my narration, and I've chosen to include them via the news articles. I mean, I've covered a lot of these cases, but every now and again, one comes around that is so gruesome. Ugh, a mess. Nevertheless, Fisher had tried to make her passing appear peaceful. The truth was anything but. The impact of Josephine's case was immediate, affecting everyone who worked to piece together what had happened that terrible night. Assistant District Attorney Antonia Edwards, leading the prosecution, described it as one of the most challenging cases of her career. Prosecutors and investigators, including ADA Edwards, meticulously built their case, revealing shocking details in each hearing. The case required the assistance of multiple law enforcement and medical agencies, including emergency responders, nurses, and medical examiners who were shaken by the gravity of the child's injuries. Shortly after these revelations, Robert Fisher was arrested and initially pleaded not guilty to the charges. The community was outraged, and Josie's family, including her brother Jy'Quan, expressed frustration with Fisher's denial. Stuart, a protective and loving sibling, struggled to make sense of the tragedy. He took the devastating news hard, really struggling to process the horror while grappling with his family's collective grief.
Robert Fisher stood in front of Judge Deborah Young this morning in Rensselaer County Court. He pleaded not guilty to rape and murder charges. There was a sizable presence of police, fire, and EMS in memory of the 3-year-old victim. Prosecutors say the little girl was foaming at the mouth.
District Attorney Mary Pat Donnelly says Fisher is assumed to be a romantic partner of the child's mother. Prosecutors explaining they believe she was home, woke up, and then called 911. And while investigators were on scene, they say Fisher attempted to get back into the home, telling them he needed to get cigarettes. Those investigators telling us they believe he was attempting to interfere in the investigation. Donnelly says there is voluminous discovery in this case, including DNA evidence linking Fisher to the 3-year-old child. Prosecutors and investigators tell us it was a difficult and disturbing case to investigate, one that required collaboration with multiple agencies. Fisher was remanded to Rensselaer County Sheriff without bail because of his extensive criminal history, including a prior violent felony conviction, multiple misdemeanor convictions, probation violations, and a history of failing to appear in court.
The fact that the age of the victim alone is difficult. You know, a lot of the fire guys, a lot of the police people have young children at home. So that alone is difficult. And then, you know, it's a homicide. You know, somebody lost their life.
I can speak for myself and probably everyone behind me. This has been absolutely heinous and horrific, something that the normal investigator, the normal prosecutor doesn't anticipate. So it's been very hard for everyone. The innocence of the child, the brutality of the act.
Fisher was sent to jail with no bail. After the arraignment, there was some shouting and fighting outside the courtroom. But some family members want the focus to be on this little girl, the victim in this case, 3-year-old Josefina, or Josie. Her mother says she's her little angel, taken away from us way too soon.
For the next year, Fisher's case made its way through the courts. While he initially maintained his innocence, prolonging the family's pain with each hearing, that wasn't for much longer. ADA Edwards noted that it's standard to negotiate pleas in cases of severe violence, yet she admitted that the brutality of this crime made doing so particularly challenging. Then came July 9, 2024. After months of legal battles, Fisher finally changed his plea to guilty, admitting to the brutal crimes he had committed against Josie. ADA Edwards visibly moved as she recounted the details. Explained how Fisher had used bleach wipes in an attempt to conceal his crime, scrubbing Josie's face so forcefully that he erased her natural pigment. He had used these wipes all over her body.
3-year-old Josefina, known to her family and friends as Josie, was a loving and caring child. She had a smile that would light up a room. Her teacher said at daycare that she often pretended to be a teacher. She would line the baby dolls up and pretend to read to them, and she would feed them. She exhibited very nurturing qualities. She was a girly girl. Every day she had her pink scarf with matching red hearts on it and a pink purse to go with it. And she would say to the teachers, "Do you like my dress today?" Hours before her murder, she was seen on video footage at her daycare, running around on the playground, smiling and laughing with her peers, doing what children should be doing. This is how her family, friends, and the community should remember Josie, a carefree, happy child. The heinous acts of the defendant took Josie away from this world and the community. And the community also deserves to know what horrible and vile acts that the defendant committed and the horror that Josie met when she came home from daycare on July 6th of 2023 into July 7th of 2023. For some background, Josie's mother, Lakeisha, met the defendant because his sister lived next door. He became a friend of Lakeisha, and he started sleeping over the house only days prior to her. He immediately revealed himself to be a predator. Within days of meeting Josie, he preyed on her and caused her death. On July 6th of 2023, in the evening hours, Lakeisha went to Walmart and left the defendant alone to watch Josie. And this is the first time that Josie had ever been alone in the defendant's care. After Lakeisha returned from Walmart, she took some of her medication and she told the police that she fell asleep. And she also told the police that Josie was sleeping. It was then sometime during the evening hours of July 6th of 2023 into the early morning hours of July 7th of 2023 that the defendant took the medication prescribed to Lakeisha, crushed it up, and put it in a cup for Josie to drink. He went into her bedroom and he hurt her. He did all of this while she was alive and awake. And we know that not only from the autopsy results, but we know that from the defendant's own words in his plea allocution. He did this to her while she was alive and awake.
And these actions killed her. Her body went through such a traumatic response. Her body shut down because it could not sustain the trauma of the.
He tried to cover it up, scrubbing her face so hard with Clorox wipes, he burned the pigment off her face. He even put Clorox wipes inside her.
A deeper look at the house yielded that there was baby shark's sheets in Josie's room, the defendant's underwear, countless towels.
Edwards also shared that avoiding a full trial, though difficult, allowed the family to avoid further trauma while ensuring Fisher's actions were thoroughly documented in court records.
Folks, this was a baby. She was a baby, and this man did her in a way that people shouldn't have to think about.
On September 10, 2024, the court reconvened to sentence the man. As Judge Deborah Young delivered her words, he kept his head down, never once meeting the gaze of Josie's family. Judge Young condemned him as a threat to society and expressed her hope that any future parole board would carefully examine the records and deny him freedom. She reminded the court that while no sentence could make the family whole, she would impose the strictest sentence available.
Heinous and depraved actions caused unimaginable pain and suffering to an innocent and defenseless child. Your actions were not only reprehensible, they were also betrayal of the trust that society places on individuals to protect and care for our most vulnerable members. Josie's own mother trusted you to care for her, and you betrayed that trust by hurting her, beating her, and killing her. And even when she was gone, you continued to blame her by using cleaning products that were so strong they literally removed the pigment from her skin in an attempt to destroy the evidence of what you had done to her. You are a threat to society, and you've shown no remorse for what you did to Josie. It is my duty to impose a sentence that reflects the seriousness of your actions and and protect society from the harm that you demonstrated yourself capable of inflicting. I want to emphasize that this agreed upon sentence was only acceptable to the court because it spared the family and the first responders and the community the additional trauma and uncertainty that comes with a trial. I would also urge anyone who may possibly think of someday approving your release back into society to read your file, read the minutes of this sentencing, read the pre-sentence investigation report, and most importantly, to look at the photos of Josie before returning you to live in society, because it is clear to this court that you will never be fit to live in the community ever again. It is the sentence and judgment of this court based upon your conviction for murder in the second degree of Class A2 felony that you be committed to the custody of the New York State Department of Correctional Services to serve an indeterminate sentence of 20 years to life in state prison. It is further the sentence and judgment of this court based upon your conviction for rape in the first degree of Class B violent felony that you be committed to the custody of the New York State Department of Correctional Services to serve a determinate sentence of 20 years in state prison, followed by 20 years of post-release supervision to be served concurrently to one another.
He said almost nothing in court.
I want everybody to know what Mr. Fisher did on that night. And when our initial responders showed up to the scene and they made contact with Josefina, they described her as being laid in bed on her back with her hands folded across her torso as if she was staged.
But the significant bruising on her hips, inner thighs, and buttocks told a different story.
We felt the plea was necessary because we needed to know what happened. And in order to have Mr. Fisher allocute, we offered him 20 to life.
Josie's brother says this case deserves the penalty.
People that that are innocent and getting like this and like this, they penalty. People that who commit these crimes get penalty.
And the official cause of death was homicidal violence during a sex assault with acute hemorrhage and lacerations, plus acute intoxication from the drugs.
In his statement, Jy'Quan Stewart expressed his disappointment that the case had not gone to trial, believing that a trial might have unearthed even more details about the events leading to his sister's passing. Seeking solace, Stewart began working on a documentary and authored a book about Josie's story. His hope is to bring awareness to cases like his sister's and advocate for stricter penalties in cases of violent crimes against children. His ultimate goal, the creation of the Josie Act, which would allow families the option to seek the DP for the most heinous crimes, a fitting legacy he felt for his beloved sister. On October 24, 2024, the Cunningham family received a final twist in the case. Fisher was found gone at Elmira Correctional Facility less than a month after entering the state prison system. His passing shocked everyone involved, including Police Chief Warren, who expressed a sense of relief that Fisher would never walk free. Details of his passing have not been disclosed as of this video, pending an investigation by the County Medical Examiner's Office. For Josie's family, it marked an unexpected and bittersweet end to a chapter of horror. Stewart admitted feeling conflicted, experiencing both relief and an overwhelming sadness at the reality of his sister's permanent absence.
I had the chance to interview Detective Sergeant Michael Diso with Rensselaer Police. He says Josefina's father wants to move on. Fishers makes the father relive that terrible attack on his young daughter. Josefina. Detective Sergeant Diso was one of the first handful of officers that responded the day Josefina died. He's had many conversations with Josefina's father.
And what was that exchange like?
It was tough because there's nothing going to bring his daughter back, and although he's no longer paying for this person to be in prison to pay for his meals and his lodging, he it's not going to bring his daughter back. He's still without his daughter, and it's still bringing it up over and over again.
I also got to catch up with Josefina's older brother, Jy'Quan Stewart. He says his sweet and smart little sister who loved Baby Shark deserved to grow up and live a full life. Stewart tells us what he and his mother thought about Fisher's death.
My mom was very shocked that she's relieved. You know, she's dead. She's happy that she's dead. A lot of people are happy that he's dead. I was very shocked because I really wanted that penalty, and I was hoping he can serve his life sentence 20 years.
Brand new at 5, Rensselaer police say they are not surprised that Robert Fisher died at the Elmira Correctional Facility this week.
Well, the Rensselaer police chief says they were informed about Fisher's death, but they're in the dark when it comes to how Fisher died. That's being investigated by the Department of Corrections and Community Services. Police Chief Warren Famigletti says it's a difficult situation for everybody involved because of the trauma this horrific death has for the family and the investigators who worked closely on this case. Hearing about Fisher's death brings that trauma back for so many.
Did you expect this death to come?
We didn't not expect it. Right? It's a horrific crime. Everybody knows what he did. So we didn't expect him to have a smooth time in prison.
News of Fisher's passing spread through the community, with many expressing a sense of closure and relief on social media. The police chief acknowledged these sentiments publicly, though he carefully avoided making any personal statements on the matter, or at least if that's the way he sees what his post was. Either way, I have no issue with his sentiments. He praised the tireless work of all who had contributed to the investigation and remarked that while Fisher's passing could never heal the wounds left by his actions, it did provide a certain peace. Through her family's advocacy, Josie's memory shines brightly, serving as a call for change and protection for children everywhere. May the family and friends of Josefina Cunningham find solace in the happy memories, and may her soul rest in perpetual peace. Thank you.